You stand in front of St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. You see two huge statues in front of the church. Looking at the basilica, the one on the left is of St. Peter, and the other on the right is of St. Paul. And today the church honors both with a single feast. And it's deemed so important that it actually replaces the ordinary Sunday of the year. In many ways, Peter and Paul were so different. Peter was an ordinary fisherman. We can suppose that he had little or no formal education. Peter seemed to be impulsive and not afraid to speak his mind. We also know that he betrayed the Lord by denying him 3 times the night before he was crucified. Yet, he was the leader, the rock on which Christ would build his church. Paul, on the other hand, was highly educated. He was a Pharisee, knowledgeable about the ins and outs of the Jewish law. He was also a skilled craftsman, a maker of tents. Paul persecuted the early church, but then underwent a conversion experience on the road to Damascus and became the great apostle to the Gentiles. And almost every week, we read from a section of the letters he wrote to the early church. But from a different perspective, Peter and Paul are similar in that they allowed God's grace to work in them and with them to accomplish great things. The message of today's feast might be put very simply. God can use all types if we are but willing to be his instruments. Like Peter and Paul, we can make mistakes and start over again. To celebrate Peter and Paul is really to celebrate what God's grace can do with all of us. Nothing is impossible with God. Peter and Paul also represent 2 parts of the mission of the church: maintenance and evangelization. Peter basically maintained and Paul expanded. Peter looked primarily to our ancestors in the faith, the Jewish people, where Paul brought us beyond our boundaries and preached Christ even to the non-Jew. You and I should appreciate the 2-part mission as well. Yes, we need to maintain what we have, but should also be willing to take risks and go beyond our current boundaries. It's true for us as individuals and for us as a parish community. There's always a tension between we've always done it this way and let's try something new. I'm sure you've heard it said, and I know I've heard it said in many a parish meeting. The truth is we need both Peters and Pauls, the ones who maintain and the ones who expand. If you were able to hear Father Malone's talk earlier this week, you heard him say that Pope Francis is trying to be a bridge maker. Indeed, the very word pontifex means a builder of bridges. Father Malone said that the Pope is urging us not to think in terms of us versus them, but rather of a we, a union, a communion. If the likes of Peter and Paul could work together in the early church, then other differences in the church should be able to work together. If you missed the talk, you can check it out on our website or on our blog. Today indeed is the feast of Peter and Paul. It's a celebration of who we are as church.